We need to move from an opposition party to being a proposition party. We need to update our House rules so that everyone can be a more effective representative. We, as a conference, should unify now and not after a divisive speaker election. I cannot and I will not give up my family time. I may not be on the road as often as previous speakers, but I pledge to try and make up for it with more time communicating our vision, our message. What I told members is, if you can agree to these requests, and if I can truly be a unifying figure, then I will gladly serve.
And welcome back to the show. That was Congressman Paul Ryan laying out the preconditions to his agreeing to run for Speaker of the House. But could it be that Ryan's demands are not quite as hard and fast as he suggests? In a meeting last night with the Freedom Caucus wing of the House GOP, Ryan failed to achieve the required 80% of the caucus's votes that he needed for an endorsement of his candidacy. And yet, Mr. Ryan did achieve enough support from the most conservative wing of his party to ensure that he appears to have sufficient support to be elected Speaker of the House. Apparently, that was good enough for Congressman Ryan. After all, who tweeted the following after the meeting. Oh, I'm going to read that to you. Sorry. I'm grateful for the support of a supermajority of the House Freedom Caucus. I look forward to hearing from the other two caucuses by the end of the week, but I believe this is a positive step toward a unified Republican team. And yet some of the key members of the Freedom Caucus sent a few of their own tweets disparaging Ryan's candidacy. While Ryan was looking for an endorsement from all three caucuses, including the Freedom Caucus, it certainly appears he is willing to accept a supermajority rather than an outright endorsement. That leads me to ask whether, despite his protestations to the contrary, Congressman Ryan just might want this job a little bit more than he's been letting on. What do you think, Carl?
I think so, but he still got 70% of the vote from the Freedom Caucus, so we have to examine the fact that if he's going to have 70% of them backing up, they believe that he's going to uphold his oath to them, which is he's promising to be a little bit more conservative than Boehner was. The other thing, too, if this doesn't work out and if he chooses not to run, who's lurking behind? I know that first-time Congressman Ryan Zinke, he's been considering it. He's been spending some time talking.
But that's not going to happen. We all know that.
It probably not, but he is there to back it up. I mean, the guy was a SEAL for over 20 years.
Still not going to happen. He's a first-term congressman.
Yeah, but he could make a run for it if Ryan doesn't.
I can make a run for it.
You don't even have to be elected.
Yeah.
So,
you know, I don't know whether or not he's not going to get the endorsement of everybody at the end of the day. He got the Tuesday group and he got the Republican Study Committee today. He also had the support, surprisingly, of a famously libertarian, contrarian Representative Justin Amash, who never voted for John Boehner, and either of the two times he had the opportunity to do so.
And he is the leader of that caucus.
Yeah, so I'm under the impression that a few people are going to fall in line. It's a lot easier to oppose somebody behind closed doors than it is in a roll call vote. I'm not sure whether or not he doesn't get those votes just before before he actually
the reality is, even without the 10 or 11 who did not vote for him in the caucus meeting, he's got enough votes today, it would appear, to be Speaker of the House.
He clearly has the votes. It's up to him whether he wants to do it or not. I've never seen, to me it's unprecedented, I've never seen someone put so many demands on a group in a position of what he's going to do that I remember.
Him at his word. I don't think he's all that anxious to take this job. I think he wants to be President of the United States someday, and this is a surefire way to derail that opportunity. So
you just take the bad end of a lot of decisions that come out. When things go good, everybody wants to take credit. When things don't go good, they blame the speaker who's in charge. So this is a no-win situation for him, but ultimately, it's going to be him.
But when Trump wins for president, though, this could be a real big thing for him for the conservative side of America.
Yeah, we'll move on. If Congressman Ryan is willing to become the Speaker of the House without the actual endorsement of the Freedom Caucus, and knowing how resentful many of the caucus members are with respect to Ryan's demand for a rule change that would prevent him from being deposed during a sitting Congress, did Ryan really mean what he said when stating his conditions, Noah?
Maybe not. I'm not
Yeah,
entirely
maybe
sure that
not.
this. I don't know if this rule wasn't just something to put on the table so that you could sweeten the pot when you take it out and get everybody to feel like
wanted
they
to
got
come on
something
strong,
out of it.
though.
Yeah, I think
So
he
you
might
think
end
it
up
was
withdrawing
a
it.
negotiation tool
Well,
in a sense?
Posturing, pure
Possibly.
posturing. That's all it was.
Possibly, but let's not pretend like this hasn't been really weaponized over the course of this Congress. That was hanging over John Boehner's head over the course of his entire term, and it might have actually been used effectively, even though it hasn't been used in 100 years. It was on the table. It was going to come out. So we don't know whether it would have been effective, but it's definitely something that conservative members can use to derail leadership.
But when you walk into a courtroom, the first thing you do is make hard, stiff demands and say, this is what we want in this case, and you let the next lawyer
You're
back
right.
it up.
You could always pull back, but you can't put it
Right,
back
but
out
here's
there.
what's so interesting. I buy what all three of you have just said. But that would, again, lead you to the conclusion that he really wants the job and that he was putting forward some tough demands so he could back off to get the job.
To show that he can come.
Maybe I'm
100%.
being naive here, but I'm disappointed because I actually believe Paul Ryan when he says the things that he says. I don't know.
Come on, really? You
All right,
believe
so
that?
let me
Still a
take you
politician.
let me take you somewhere. He is still a politician. Why should anybody believe if Paul Ryan becomes Speaker of the House that things will be any different in the House than it was under John Boehner?
You know, I honestly can't answer that question. I hope to see.
Well, then let me ask Noah. Since you can't answer, maybe he can.
I'm worthless. Sorry.
Well, I think he's got a little bit more legitimacy than John Boehner has now. He's got the endorsement of everybody. He's going to probably have just about everybody's votes, maybe a couple of stragglers, and he's going to be a very legitimate House member or House leadership. So, I think that'll
Why
be a
is
little
he
bit
more
different.
legitimate than Boehner?
Because John Boehner was constantly facing leadership challenges. He had
who
Representative
says
Meadows,
that?
who was going to submit a leadership challenge.
Who says that Ryan won't?
Well, because he's got all their endorsements.
It doesn't mean that they can't still do it. See, that's what I find fascinating about this. They're not signing a document.
If they want committee assignments, they'll
Well,
honor
that's
it.
one way they do it. All right. Do you think that Paul Ryan will make a more effective Speaker of the House than John Boehner? Let us know by going to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Coming up next, Donald Trump says the president wants to take your guns away. You're going to want to stay for that.